Welcome to an hour of HealthMade Radio. HealthMade is a community for natural health seekers where we educate people about common health conditions and share extensive research on the most effective natural health treatments and promote legislation that protects our health freedoms. A core concept belief is in the innate intelligence and healing power of the body, and if properly supported spiritually, emotionally, and nutritionally, it can find its way back to health. HealthMade Radio will bring information from integrative health experts throughout the world. Check us out at healthmade.co. Health is what you make it. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt, and I will be your host. Today's guest is Rhys Thomas. Rhys Thomas is a visionary author, speaker, trainer, and coach in the personal growth and energy medicine field. He is the founder of Rhys Thomas Institute of Energy Medicine and the creator of Rhys Method, a powerful system, self-discovery, transformation, and healing. The Rhys Method is taught exclusively at the Rhys Thomas Institute of Energy Medicine through the Rhys Thomas coaching programs and through his product and online programs. Rhys' greatest inner gift is the ability to awaken you to your deepest inner knowing of who you were born to be and what you are here to do to inspire others. He gives step-by-step guidance in how to let go of sabotage through confusion and playing small. The results of his work give a powerful ability to make choices in your business branding, who you choose to be in relationships with, how to call to you that which you truly desire, and not that which you don't in the areas of personal health and well-being, both physically and spiritually. Through his work with thousands of people over the last 30 years, Rhys has discovered how to help people get the three things they want most: financial freedom in a career they're proud to be known for, better relationships, both personally and in business, and better health so they can have more fun in life. Rhys, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show today, and I know that these are areas that people are really reaching out to understand more about.
Absolutely. It's great to be here.
So we're talking about personal growth, but then you're also bringing in energy medicine into the personal growth. Can you describe a little bit why did you include that as well?
Well, I was on a personal growth journey through my life, and I was both a competitive athlete and then a martial artist, and then a professional athlete, a tennis professional for many years, working with top athletes as well as country club players and individuals. And I always strive to be the best I could be. And back when I was growing up, there was sort of sports psychology. I studied that, bioenergetics, not bioenergetics, but the physiology of the movements and your body and nutrition. And I studied all that, and I found that got my body in pretty good shape, but I was still having, whether it be emotional issues or relationship issues or problems in my life, when I was sort of like everything should have been working. I had a good job, I was successful at what I was doing, and yet I always felt like there was something missing. And it wasn't until I started studying some of the work of Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra and then Carolyn Mace, and then I found the work of Barbara Brennan, and I studied in a 4-year energy medicine school, that I realized that what underlies all of our success in life is a deeper understanding of why we're here and why we were born. Why do we have the body we have? Why do we have the emotions we have? Why were we born to the parents that we were born to? And encoded into our energy body are all of those answers. And so I noticed that I was able to unlock some of those answers when I was working with competitive athletes or people in tennis and trying to find happiness while they're playing tennis. And then through my martial arts, I learned about how to move chi energy and understanding the power of intention and will. But it wasn't until I did healing work that I realized that all of that is integrated in each one of us as a whole, just being our unique selves. And discovering that unique self is the essence of success in all of the areas of your life.
So how does one go about then, like you in your journey, you found your why. How does one go about then finding the why behind why you're doing things? Because like you mentioned, I mean, a person can be successful in their trade, but it doesn't mean that they're happy. I mean, they can have financial freedom, but it doesn't mean that they are who they want to be. How did you find your why, and how should another person be able to kind of start that journey?
Well, in my book, Discover Your Purpose, how to use the 5 life purpose profiles to unlock your hidden potential and live the life you were meant to live, I use the work of two of the most brilliant minds in energy healing, I feel, Alexander Lowen and Wilhelm Reich. They, back in the 20s, realized that Freud was a little crazy trying to fix the brain with the brain, because the brain creates the problem. Same. Einstein said the brain that creates the problem can't solve it, and that is a universal truth, because the brain creates something that doesn't actually exist in the universe and then calls it reality and then tries to fix it by looking at it and twisting it around. It just makes it more of a twist. Whereas the body really, the energy body really has the wisdom, and and then in the East they've been studying the chakras forever, and the integration of both this wisdom of these psychiatrists, Lowen and Reich, and then they worked with Jung to understand these centers, these energy centers, and mixing that with the chakra system, and understanding that the wisdom in each area, energetic and electromagnetic area of your body, had wisdom that the brain couldn't fathom, because the brain really wasn't designed to do anything other than protect you. There was no evolutionary advantage to being happy or being spiritual. Zero. But any little creature or person was sitting there humming and eyeing was just going to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. So there's no advantage to that, and so we evolved. Our brains evolved to be more violent and more aggressive and more protective than what it was obviously capable. We're realizing now that we were capable of this higher wisdom, but the higher wisdom doesn't necessarily come directly from the brain. It comes from the sensations and the feelings that get shut down when we're in the stress, when we're under stress. When we're under stress, we shut down our feelings to protect against being attacked, or even in the mind. The mind thinks, well, I was yelled at as a child. I have to constantly hold my energy down and in, so that if anybody yells at me again, I'm prepared for that. And so the brain always prepares for the worst, never for the best. And but the body needs to be opened up again. So this work that I did through energy work and opening the energy centers, and then being able to experience myself through energy work, through healing work, through the types of transformation work we do when we're talking about these 5 life purpose profiles, and recognizing that there's one of these qualities within each of us, and as a foundational soul quality rather than just a behavior, which say DISC and Enneagram and Myers-Briggs, they're all nice ways of reinforcing who you think you are, but they aren't really a good way to figure out who you are. Whereas your chakras and your energy body, they help you realize that you can never think who you are. You have to feel it. And when your attention is put on the energy body rather than on the mind and what it's thinking, and the emotions and the chemicals that are being generated by that thinking, and you feel who you are, you have a much greater opportunity to notice that there's something that's been true within you since you were born, rather than something that is true right now in my life, and it has a pattern and has a behavior, and it must be who I am.
So what you're saying, and I think this is interesting, through evolution, whether it's evolution according to Darwin or as we evolve as individuals, in the past people have just been functioning on survival. And that was the key component, survival, and how do I fit within the my inner circle, my tribe, my community, and how I fit within that enhances my chance of survival. So you're pointing out that the brain, which we think is our higher functioning organ, actually is just wired to be able to support our survival. And if we try to figure out everything through our brain, all we're figuring out is how to survive. But it does not then, like you're mentioning, solve our ability to really find the why, to find happiness, to find joy, these higher sensations that are then connected more to kind of a higher part of ourselves that you're mentioning. Our energy body is that connection, to that higher aspect of ourselves where we can then connect to that. Is that correct?
You got it. that is it, and that's why the program I run a 3-year training in energy medicine. I call it Life Mastery Training, and almost everyone who comes has done some kind of work already. They've been out trying different things, energy work or meditation or yoga or Reiki or whatever they've tried. They've tried something. They've had this epiphany that there's something more. But they have this sense of, they all have the sense that as good as they've made their life, and most people, many people have succeeded in life to survive. But once they are surviving, they have this sense of, well, isn't there more? There must be something more. There's the promise of the survival. If I got to this place where I actually didn't have to worry that I could pay my bills at the end of the month, or at least coming close to that, that I would be happy. And that is not the state that the brain has been wired to over a millennia, over its evolution. And now, because of the as crazy as things are in the world right now, the positive, the increase in security in the world is actually, as much as if you watch the news you don't see that, there is a positive. Almost every area of the world, it is a safer world to live in consistently, and each generation, and yet the mind hasn't caught up to that, but the soul and the heart has. The soul saying, "Come on, we're getting really close to that place where you can turn inward, you can feel that sense of purpose, even in a hard situation, even in a struggle, even when you have to stand up for yourself, even when you have to say something to someone that's hard." And that is, the realization that the soul quality is actually love. So each of us have a version, a quality of love that we're here to express in the world. And so the soul itself is love. The brain can think in hallmark love. It can give you a card. It can say, "I love you." It can do some things. But the brain doesn't actually love until the body, until the whole being is expressing your purpose. And your purpose is that love. And some people's purpose is to lead, and some people's purpose is to achieve and to see the big picture and help others achieve and organize them, and others, their purpose is to caretake others and love them and support them when they're down and help them back up to their feet. And then others, their purpose is just to care, just to be gentle and loving. And then others are here to be creative. And those are the 5 life purpose profiles that I talk about. And those are soul qualities rather than behavior qualities. We can all behave in those ways, but one of those qualities makes you blissfully happy. And until you're able to access that and recognize that the greatest lie we were ever told as a child is that we could become anything that we want to become. And it's not true. It's absolutely the worst lie that we were told by our parents. And almost always we were told it when they didn't want us to do what we were doing or be what we were being. They told you, you can do anything you want to do, but that's not what you're doing. But the reality is that if our parents were actually masters and understood, they would realize that each one of us is born to do only one thing. There's one deliverable that we all have, and it's a quality of love, a quality of being, a quality of caring and sharing and inspiring in the world that only we can discover. And our sorts of course, our parents and their language and our religions and our cultures and schools do everything they can to drive that individuality out of us and to drive us into feeling like we ought to be like everybody else, and we ought to, it's who we should be, not who we really are, and we literally, as children, make a solemn vow to not be who we are, because that would never get fully accepted in the world, and to try to be who we're supposed to be, and that drives people to forget and to to shut their energy field down, so they can no longer feel what the energy field is actually doing, which all the energy field does 24 hours a day is it tells you exactly what your life purpose is, and is an electromagnetic field that draws to you your life purpose. And without knowing your life purpose, everything that comes to you, you don't recognize, you can't see it, you don't understand why it's coming to you, and because it keeps coming at you, and you're like, well, why does this stuff always keep happening to me? And you can't figure it out. So it's this understanding and sort of getting to that deeper feeling state of, oh, that's the truth. And this is the sort of the foundational rock I build at my school, which is kind of the missing piece in transformation work, that everybody can have epiphanies and have awakenings and have great healings and come out of a weekend workshop and say, oh my God, I'm enlightened, and then it only lasts for a few weeks because they don't have a foundation to build it on. It's just an experience. So understanding that healing work and transformational work it opens the door. Once you have that door open, you have to recognize that what's deep down inside has a very specific frequency and experiential feeling that then is the actual purpose in life, to experience that and then to share that feeling.
I love it. Yeah, it's just like any kind of substance. They have a very specific frequency that represent that substance, and it's the same with the individual. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to HealthMade Radio. I'm here with Rhys Thomas. Welcome back to HealthMade Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Rhys Thomas. He is the author of the amazing book, Discover Your Purpose: How to Use the 5 Life Purposes Profiles to Unlock Your Hidden Potential and Live the Life You Were Meant to Live. So one of the things that you were talking about was that most people, they want financial freedom, they want better relationships, and they want better health. So it seems like so much effort is being then funneled into achieving these 3 different areas. But what you are doing with your work, you are then looking more for finding who you are, tapping into who you are, and you're using in your book the word core, kind of connecting to your core. And by connecting with that, then these 3 things resolve by themselves. They become just natural.
Right. Yes. So for those of your listeners who have done energy work, if you ever have had a Reiki session or an energy work session of any kind, or you've done an amazing yoga workout, or even running or lifting, and at the end of it, you're just pulsing. Your body's just alive, and in that moment, it's sort of like an epiphany of, you don't feel like there's no desire to go anywhere or do anything. You're just whole. And that is, at that moment, is when the energy field has expanded. Often only, like, the energy field only needs to expand like a 1/4 inch. It doesn't have to go very far. But it expands, and it lets in this higher level of consciousness. And that higher level of consciousness has a higher frequency. That higher frequency carries more information. That information has more understanding of who you are, where you are, and why you are where you are in the world. And so when you are, as you expand that, and then you can learn how to hold it, as there are many energy medicine techniques that do this, but this work that I'm doing around the profiles and what I call it's also based on the vertical line of energy that called the Hara line, or I call the life purpose line, that they train in Qigong. That line actually energetically has 3 points on it, and those points are like contracts for how you're here to live your life. And once you have opened the chakras, that's the next level down of consciousness, and it's really interestingly, it is where gravity comes from. It is like the source of your electromagnetic field is a vertical line, like the north and south poles of a battery. There's a vertical line of energy that runs through us that way and grounds into the earth and connects up over our head into spirit. And that line is literally where gravity comes into our universe, and it creates a big circular field around it, a torus field of energy all around it. And that torus field is created and creates your chakras, and your chakras have a physical form, an emotional form, an action form, a relationship, all these dimensions of consciousness that we are experiencing our lives through, our ability to communicate, our ability to see and perceive, and our ability to connect to higher wisdom. And these 7 chakra centers are expressions of this magnetism that we have within us that is a soul purpose. And when you access that deeper level of energy, it's a much higher conscious frequency. And when you have a higher conscious frequency, you become much more conscious of what's actually around you and why it's around you and the people that are around you. And so many people that are looking for a great relationship, once they expand their energy field, they realize, oh my God, that person's been here in my life my whole time just waiting for me to notice them. And people that are like, I got to get the right job, I have to do this. I work with them on expanding their energy field and being themselves and they go back to the job they've been doing for 15 years that they've been hating and can't stand and don't want to do anymore, like I did, and went back to it and realized, oh my God, I've never even brought my real self to this job. This job's great. And oftentimes people are already doing the right thing, but they're bringing the wrong person to it. And health is no different. People have these chronic health issues because they've been running their energy at such a low level. Or, as we said before, that child who made that solemn vow to be somebody that they are not, all of their behaviors, all of their thoughts, all of the way they create, their mind creates chemicals in their body and their emotions and their stress, all of the stress is that they're fighting against what their chakras need rather than feeding their chakras, feeding their energy systems. They act in a way they're not supposed to act. They think the way they're not supposed to think. They hold their emotions in ways that they're not supposed to hold them because their body needs to flow with the universe, and the universe flows through them, and they live. If the universe hits them and they say, no, I'm not that, and I'm not going to be that, I'm going to be this, now you're in an argument with the universe, and you only lose 100% of the time when you argue with the universe.
So it's almost like you're talking about the chakra system and the flow, the frequencies and all these things. I mean, it's all in the brain. I mean, we have the alpha, beta, theta, delta waves, and if they're not in balance, and you're more prone to things like maybe insomnia, impulsivity, ADHD, anxiety, depression, etc. So that's kind of more on that brain level, survival level. And then then you're talking about the chakra system. That's it functions the same way, that they have different frequencies, and you need to do the same thing there, where you need to allow these frequencies to be in balance with each other and function at the right time. And by doing that, you optimize then the function of your spirit, of your soul, of who you are, to then manifest life the way that you want it to be lived.
And it comes down to that is exactly when we were talking about the whole theory of it, but the actual practicality of it is, if you've got a big, strong body that likes to bang into people, you better go play football. Don't be don't be on the badminton team. And if you've got a huge passionate, emotional personality, you better be in energy, connected relationships. And if you've got a much more subtle, gentle type of an emotional system, you need to have tea with people and talk with people and talk gently and be around people that support that quality within you. And if you are a super doer, you've got to, and you're going to run a marathon, you're going to do that, get out, and you just get out and do it. Don't say, nobody, none of my family has ever done that, I can't do that, that sort of thing. Or if you are a person that loves to lay on the couch and just watch TV, don't feel bad about it. It's who you are. And so each of these energy centers are so basically simple. And each of these qualities, if you're a leader or if you're an achiever, these five soul qualities, leaders go for it really hard, and then they totally let go of things. Just like if it either is going to work or not, and they know how to fish and cut bait, and they go for it hard. And then if it doesn't work, they're so like it's yesterday's news. I'm so done with that, and they move on from things. Leaders are constantly trying to push the envelope. Achievers, on the other hand, are mastery focused, and how they use their emotions, they contain them, they contain their actions. They have relationships that are very balanced so that they can achieve over the long time. And then the caretakers are very warm and heart-centered, and they have chakras that are meant to hug and to support, and they have very solid bodies that can lift and are strong, but not sort of like they're not runners. They're very much there to ground people and hold space for them. And then the deep feelers are very like watery and emotional and sensitive, and each of these people have a full set of chakras that are, and when you think about them, rather than sort of analytically, but you think about them as just how would they behave? What type of a voice would a person who just the only thing their purpose in life is to do is to love, how would they talk? They'd talk soft and slow and gentle. And they, and whereas someone who's more like me, who's got like super creative, is going to talk fast and have ideas and throw new ideas and put things new together and create a new idea each time he speaks. And and each of them have different ways they use the chakras. And so recognizing that helps people the most, because everyone knows people that are totally up in their head and spinning and downloading things and can never do the same thing twice. And they know people that are just so gentle that the wind blows and they're just like they have to go inside, they shiver, they're just so gentle. And they know people that are just these big, warm, hugging, smiling service people that are always there when you're sick and helping you. And they know people that are really buttoned up and very organized and often have many letters behind their names, and they're successful and driven, and they do things and they are disciplined in their way they do. And then we know people that are these what we call leader qualities, and leaders are either going to be leaders are going to lead, right? They're going to either lead as a wonderful example or they're going to lead as a terrible warning. And we see that all over the world right now in our leaders. They're either wonderful examples or horrible warnings. And they have a need to make change in the world, and they will. And they do it through inspiring, through seducing. They do it through bullying. They do it through manipulating. They'll do whatever they need to do to gain control and get other people to follow them and make them do what they want them to do. And each of those qualities, and as you understand the quality, then you can also understand, that's why, and that's how chakras work. That's why they have relationships like they have. Each one has a very different set of relationships. Each one speaks totally different than the other one. Each one thinks and sees the world differently than every other one. Each one acts differently. Each one has a different amount of emotion they need to express that quality within them. And each one has this is where I differ from all other and this is where Lowen and Reich also differ from all of the other profiling systems. You have to have the body for it. Your chakras serve the soul gravitational field purpose. The body is the physical manifestation of that purpose. And so you can't have a body that doesn't channel the perfect energy to live your purpose. So just because you've behaved a certain way in your life doesn't mean that that's who you are. Your energy body, your physical body, can only move energy like a tuning fork. It only has one note. And you got to figure out what that note is. And that note has a very specific purpose within it.
That's fascinating. I want to get back to these 5 personalities. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to HealthMade Radio. I'm here with Rhys Thomas. He is the author of Discover Your Purpose. We'll be right back. Welcome back to HealthMade Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Rhys Thomas. So, Rhys, you were talking about these 5 different distinct soul-based profiles. And it was fascinating. You're mentioning that in addition to then finding the profile, is that there's actually a body type. I mean, it's a physical body shape that then encompasses, or that holds that energy of this soul-based profile. So how would you describe these body types? And you were talking about the creative idealist. I mean, how would that individual look like?
So creative people are going to tend to be, so think about what their purpose is in life. A creative person is a person who's going to be downloading creative consciousness from above, from the highest chakras and the energy field above, and the opening of the seventh chakra, which is opening to the spiritual centers, spiritual levels. And so they're literally bringing in new ideas, like Einstein, his vision of riding a light beam. It was his dream that actually drove him to find the mathematics around E equals MC squared, and so a brilliant mind needs to have very little distraction down in the lower part of the body. So they're going to be very thin. They're going to have thin bodies. They often have. They often tend to be double jointed, loose joints, and they often stand when you talk to them. They have a slight head tilt because they literally have learned to focus more on the upper two chakras, chakra 6 and the mind. So the third eye area, the sixth chakra in the forehead, the mind, and this crown are actually light processors. The other chakras are vibrational processors. So they from the fifth chakra down, they vibrate. They process the much lower frequencies and octave of sound waves. And then we skip a whole bunch of octaves, 30 or 40 octaves up, and then in our chakra 6 and 7, which we haven't really learned how to manage very well, process light. And so a creative person is going to really find that they are more up out of the world and connected to the light, to this brilliance that just spins. And so they will have a body that's very thin, and the energy when you experience them as not very present, because you don't feel their lower chakras. They're not in their lower chakras as much, because their whole purpose in life is to have enough consciousness in the upper chakras pulling up. And so they tend to be tall and thin, and they will often not be paying attention to you when you talk, and they'll be on their own thought patterns, and they'll be thinking things, and you'll often go, "Are you listening to me?" And they'll go, "Ah, yeah," and they were sort of in some sort of offhanded way, in their split personality way, but they will be very, so the body will be tall and thin to be able to process energy coming down. If they had a big, heavy, dense body, all of their focus, their energy focus in their body would be focused on that body, and that would be much more relational. Whereas they're very much non-relational; they're more intuitive, and they're allowing that energy to come in that way.
So then
the next one would be the deep feelers.
Yeah.
And now the deep feelers are also, now we'll go from the least present on the world to the most present, which would be the leaders. So the least present would be the creative, and they are the most mystical, they're there to bring the energy in. They're not here to do a lot with it, because they don't have the structure down below to do a lot with it. They have to have others, the achievers and the leaders, to kind of take it and do something with it. And then you have the deep feelers. Now the deep feelers they're very soft. They're more like a yoga kind of body. Very little muscle definition. Like a flow yoga kind of body, where they move slower. They're very non-aggressive. They don't have any fast twitch muscles. They tend to have a little more, they tend to be thin, because once again, they're not here to hold any physical space in the world. They're not here to hold space. They're here to hold love. So now what happens is that energy comes down through them but it doesn't go out into their arms and legs and where they're going to build up this strength to protect themselves and to stand firmly in the world. It pools in the second chakra area, in the hip area. So they'll tend to have little round bellies, maybe a little bit more weight on the hip area, but that energy, when you feel them as sort of saddle, like there's sort of like they don't have like shoulders back. They're sort of soft. Their shoulders are slightly down, and their energy is sort of settling down in their body. And their eyes are very big and sort of almost like watery type of eyes, because their whole purpose in life is to express and experience emotion and to support you and the world in having emotion and feeling and knowing what love even is, and knowing that love isn't even emotion. It is really an emotion. It's a state of being, and they are able to have those types of deep types of feelings. And so their body is wired to be incredibly sensitive. They're the people who tend to get, they're the most likely to get things like, Lyme's and fibromyalgia, where these are emotion-based illnesses, and sort of when their emotions get rejected, they get invaded by things because they don't have a good boundary, and so they have bodies that are very soft.
So, and then you can do the same thing with pretty much all 5 profiles. You can go through, and people can find this in your book, how you can kind of match. It's almost like you then can match your body structure, and from that, it will give you a clue as to what profile that you are. Yeah,
absolutely. And amazingly, I just did a 2-day open thing that I call Awaken. It's a live event that I do for the public, and I always have people just come up on stage and say, okay, everybody thinks they're because one of the most common things that people will do in the world is caretake and team play, and so there's a profile, and I explained about it and the defense of it, which is sort of like feeling like a doormat, and the good quality of it, which is caring for other people and putting other people first. And they're what we call the team player. And I say, okay, everybody who thinks they're a team player, come on up on stage. And I'll get, at any one time, I'll get 12 people up on stage, and not one of them will be an actual team player, because
that's fascinating. Why do you think that is so?
Because society tells, especially women, and I do work. I run an energy school, and we probably have, it's probably 90% women, and at an event like that, most of the people that are going to come up on stage are going to be women. But it wasn't true. I had 2 or 3 guys that came up on there as well, and people that consider themselves to be caretakers often are leaders who weren't in a family situation where they could just stand up and say, well, I'm in charge. So they led by being the best caretaker, or caretaking in the way that the parents needed them to, or stepping up and sort of taking over for the parents were alcoholics or things like that. And then there are the other ones that are the achievers, and they just knew better than the parents how to do things. And they were literally, they were the oldest child, or they were, the middle child, or whatever they were, and they were helping everybody else get what they needed to get done, and they just did it really well, and they knew how to do that. Or they were a woman that said the best thing you can do is do for others, not for yourself. And they learned the rules, and they did it, and they created this persona through their behavior.
So must be a huge relief then when you then recognize here you thought that you're supposed to be this caretaker, and that was ingrained in you, and then recognizing that this is not who I am, I can let go of this, and this is who I am, and this is what I should do.
Yeah, you'd think that, but it's a bit confusing at first, right?
Yeah.
Because when I say, let's look at how your body is. Let's look at what you actually do for work. And when you ask them what they actually do, they're in charge of something, or they're, and it's true for the creative people and the deep feelers as well. They can also pretend that they're, team players as well. I mean, the 2 most common are team playing and achieving. And if you're going to be in business, you have to be an achiever. And if you're going to, be a good person, you're going to caretake others. And those are the 2 sort of most commonly misused defenses, that I call them, of the profiles. But once they discover that they really are that, then that's where the process comes in. That's why I run a school, because you're just realizing it's the first step. And then what's it like to live that way? Because everybody that surrounds you right now, if you've been a team player, you've been telling everybody, I'll take care of everything. No, I got it. You go out. I'll take care of this. I'll vacuum the house. I'll take care, I'll do all these things. They're not going to easily let you off the hook. They're not going to say all of a sudden, oh, you're really a leader. Oh, here, let us do it for you. They're going to be the people around you aren't going to like the fact that you're coming back with a new bargain. And so there's a confusion at first as to how am I going to come back into my life or into my work or into my relationship, or how do I take care of my body? How do I start doing this more? And that's the next step, and that's what's in the book as well, which talks to you about the way you take those steps, and then ultimately you need to share with the people around you in a way, share your truth, because really what you've been doing your whole life is lying. And it's not a terrible lie, because you weren't even aware of doing it. You just thought that was just who you were, and it's who you had practiced being.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break. I want to chat a little bit more how people can go about and this. I think you mentioned in your book that there's like a 3-step process that people go through. So we'll be right back. You're here listening to Rhys Thomas on HealthMade Radio. Welcome back to HealthMade Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Rhys Thomas. He's the author of Discover Your Purpose, How to Use the 5 Life Purpose Profiles to Unlock Your Hidden Potential and Live the Life You Were Meant to Live. So how does an individual, in addition to then obviously looking at, what do I look like and which profile do I match, is there an additional way that people go through to try to figure out what my life purpose is and what profile matches me?
Well, part of it is, and in my book, there's a couple of exercises that I do. One of them is, in the very beginning of the book, there's an exercise called Your Secret Place. And for most people, not everyone, but for most people, there was a place in your childhood, and oftentimes between the ages of 4 and, say, 8 years old, when you were still had that connection to this soul quality within you. You hadn't been sort of, as Don Miguel Ruiz talks about, it hadn't been domesticated out of you by society yet or by your parents. And even though it was, by the time you learned the language, it was already working on you. But you still had this place, like you would go and play. You have a place either out in the woods or in the basement or an attic or in your room possibly, but someplace that you would go that was sort of like it was your place, and you had you had fantasy of being a pirate or reading or flying, or for me, I had up in a tree. I loved like being way up in the top of a pine tree, and one of those Christmas tree type pine trees that like 80 feet up in the air with a top is is swinging around, and I'm just moving around, and I'm visualizing that I was flying, and then having other places where I was doing creative things and creating superheroes, kind of like I do in my school right now. And I was always being that creative, sort of coming up with these amazing characters that could do amazing things in their lives. And each person, so an easy way to sort of do the exercise is to go and find that place, or even if you didn't have a place when you were younger like that, you couldn't remember it, just some place that you just loved being who you are, the beach, later on in life, whatever it was, the someplace, maybe a camp, maybe a grandparent's house, or maybe it was with a person, maybe there was a grandparent or someone that you just loved, when you were with them, it was just like that was it. You wished it never ended. It was just that incredible feeling of this is what I love doing, this is what I love being, and I thrive here. And then part of the exercise is to come back into the home. And when you come back into the home from that place where you were really feeling that incredible feeling, what with your family and inside the home, how did you then contain your energy? How did you shift your energy from being in that total freedom to being a family member? And usually that energy, that shift you made, the way you crushed your energy field down to fit into the constraints of a family and children and parents and extended family, whatever you had, usually becomes the pattern in your life to cope. That's your coping mechanism. And so as we sort of talk about then the, sort of which other, so you may have coped by, we were just talking about team playing, caretaking. Like if you help with the dishes, you clean up the house, you clean up your room, you do what you're being told, you get more freedom, you get more, more attention. And when you get more attention, you will continue to do that. And that's what parents reinforce, good behavior with attention. And so we learn those things, and then as we now look back, we can see that pattern that we chose to do, that person that we chose to be and fit into the family, then created a lifetime of choosing that in relationships, in family. And so that is one way, sort of recognizing and going back and realizing that feeling you had when you were a kid in that secret place is actually the world you are here to create as an adult, not whatever everybody else has told you. You're that little world that you had, that fun for me. It was the flying, it was the creating superheroes. I also had a secret place where I was fishing, and imagine I was fishing for a huge fish, a dolphin. And this is what I do now. I'm a spiritual taskmaster. I teach at a Energy Medicine School, which is a modern day mystery school, and I'm casting into the abyss into these people and trying to pull out the biggest fish they've got. So the way you experience the world as a child was actually breadcrumbs back to your core quality. And if you actually think about how you behaved in that place, and some people thought they were, I thought I was flying because I was the whole world. I was everything. But others literally feel like Superman. They have this power, this strength, this, they can break, they can, Superman or Superwoman, or, and they have this more, empowered, like passionate type of energy within them. That's the leader quality. And you'll notice that when you feel that core, where we talked about, you feel that core quality within you, and then put attention on that, and notice that it still is there at times. And then the more you put attention, we are just creation machines. We're a big electromagnetic creation machine. And whatever we focus our electromagnetic field on, we'll magnify that. And if we put our attention on being somebody that we aren't, we just magnify that. And no matter how painful it gets, we continue to magnify on it because we keep trying to make it do that. It becomes our addiction. But if we can remember these qualities within us, this passion, this intelligence, this organizational way of being, this big heart, these types of things, and we put our attention back on that, on what's important, on our core, remembering, and seeing the natural over our lifetime how we betrayed that, and then forget, and that's basically how we forgive ourselves, not by saying, well, I forgive myself, that's just a thought. But to forgive yourself is to realize, oh, this is what I really wanted to do, but I was afraid. Now I'm not afraid anymore. I'm going to do that, and you forgive your past by being who you are in the present, not by going back to your past and trying to heal it. You can't heal the past. You can only heal the past by being fully present and be that secret place right now in the present moment. Be that playful child. Surround yourself with people that are amazing. There's a study, Harvard did a study on happiness and health and well-being in later in life. And, as I read the study, basically they said that the number one factor in health and happiness and longevity and the least amount of infirmity in old age are the people you surround yourself with. The people you surround yourself with, and especially people over the age of 50. And so when people have the midlife crisis, which they come to me for, and over a 3-year training in school, we teach them how to reestablish their relationships in a way that rather than workmates, they create playmates. And when they create that environment around themselves with the people, and they share their truth, and surround themselves with the people that love their truth, not their lie, life changes almost instantaneously for them. And the second half of their life, or more, we're probably going to start living till 120, 130 years, 150 years pretty soon. That second piece of life from 50 on is going to be so much better.
So, I mean, what's fascinating to me is to recognize that this is not an analytical process. I mean, this is not a process that you sit down and you try to figure out and use your brain to figure it out. But it's like you're mentioning, it's connecting with the feeling, meaning that feeling is who you are, that vibration, that core component. And by doing that, you can then attract that feeling in your environment, so that you actually change your frequency, your being, your electromagnetic field, and you become then that magnet that's then pulling the people that you want around you. Like you're saying, if I'm always wanting to achieve, and I'm that type A and high energy, and that's the frequency that I set out, that's the people I'm going to pull towards me. Or if the key is then to like you're saying, shift your electromagnetic field to pull the people in and pull the experiences in that matches your core aspect of who you truly are, and that's how you'll find joy.
Absolutely. And it's effortless when you're there. Because I'm always going to attract the right person to me, but if I don't know who I am, they're going to have an argument with me. We're going to argue. If you don't know who you are, the right person comes to you, but because you don't know who you are, and they need you to know who you are, so they know how to interact with you. And over time, even though maybe you both thought it was the right thing to do, you can't understand each other because neither one of us is really speaking a whole truth. Whereas when you feel your truth and you know your truth and you speak it, the person comes to you, and now all of a sudden they speak a different level of truth. They're not in resistance either. Because if I lie to you, you're going to lie to me. There's just no two ways about it. You're not going to say, "Oh, I feel free to tell my deepest feelings to this person." You won't. You'll just be if someone says, "Well, I'm this," and you're like, "Whoa, that person has to be that." Like your parents, for instance, they were so sure they knew who they were, and you were the child and they were the adult, and and you knew they were the child and you were the adult, but there was no arguing with them, and so you learn how to contain and play within those rules, and then we learn that in life. But as soon as you shift and go back to your core quality within you, the people that do come to you, they change. When you change who you think you are and how you feel about the world changes, and almost instantaneously, these same people that would come to you and argue with you and cause you pain come and support you in being in your life purpose.
Well, I truly appreciate your wisdom and everything that you do in the world. I enjoyed having you on the show tremendously.
Thank you, and I enjoyed being here.
Well, thank you so much. And I really, I read through the book Discover Your Purpose, and it's an amazing read, and it's something that it's not just something that you sit and read. It's something practical that moves you through, so that you can discover who you truly are, and with that, then take the next step of getting through that lie that sometimes we live when we try to become something or be something that we're not. So thank you so much, Rhys. That is it for today. You are listening to HealthMade Radio. Remember, health is what you make it.